Greetings, loyalists and heretics. Welcome to Iron and Ceramite, where we once again enter the warp without an astropath.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Iron and Ceramite podcast. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by Shane.
Hello.
Dave.
Hi guys.
Glenn.
Hiya.
And Tom.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? All right?
Outstanding.
Good.
Yeah, good, thank you. You?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. What's everybody been working on? Anything exciting since we last spoke?
Let's let Dave go first once again, because last time he did nothing whatsoever, so I want to give him the opportunity to redeem himself.
I hadn't redeemed myself up until this morning,
to
be honest, but I have been very, very busy today. You'd be pleased to hear. And I've built and primed my tactical warsuit, squad of Outriders. I haven't primed Hellbreak or Grimaldus, but they're both built. So I've had a very busy day today getting stuff ready for now that I've actually got a bit of space set up under the stairs to start painting and actually doing some proper stuff. So I'm ready to go with a bit of vehicles. But yeah, that's about it really. I haven't had too much time to do anything else. Haven't read much. Obviously sort of preps for this, so I've been watching a fair few lore videos and stuff like that, but nothing too exciting.
I suppose it's hard to get a lot done when you live under the stairs though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm only allowed out for half hour a day.
Get your exercise.
Also, I love it, Dave, how you go, I haven't really had enough time. And you messaged me last night going, yeah, I'm playing Deathwing for the next few hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but she went to bed then, so I snuck out. What about you, John? What have you been doing?
Not too much. I finished my Biologus Putrefier the other day.
Is that the one from Germany?
From Germany?
Yeah,
No. That's my foul blightspawn. He wasn't supposed to be German. It's just the way that came out. But yeah, the foul blightspawn, because he has the barrel on his back, and he carries like a hose, I guess, that shoots all sorts of wonderful goo at people. So I was trying to do like the a liquid effect, so it looked like he had liquid in the back. And I watched someone else do one. It was like it's all about layering. So you go from dark to light. And I didn't have like enough blues or greens to really do anything. So I got a couple of reds, but yeah, it kind of German. I was going for sunset, but it came out very German. Not too bad. There's nothing wrong with that though.
That looked good. Like as I said, I thought you were bit hard for himself. I thought it was a good attempt.
You definitely got the glaze right. It looked nice and glossy, I think. What did you use for that? Was it or just the paint that you used, or what?
Afterwards I went over with a Fugan orange shade, a couple of layers of that, just to sort of make it shine a bit. So hopefully, like when it's done, it will look better.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
But you can definitely see like you can really see like the lines in between it. But other than that, so that's still a work in progress. But I did my Putrefier, and he's all done. I wish I'd done them the other way round, because obviously this guy's got like a load of bottles hanging off the back of him, and I've just sort of done them in like whatever color. I didn't really do much of an attempt to make them look like they were vials. So they look a bit matte rather than sort of glossy. But maybe I'll get another one and try again another time. But he came out all right in the end. But that was so fiddly because he's got like all the little bottles that are tied on by like string or whatever. So getting that without making it all blotchy. In the end, I think I just threw a load of Agrex at it in the end, just to cover up all the white bits I couldn't get to.
Been there before.
Yeah. But so he's ready to go. And then like I said, so my foul blightspawn, that's my last model now. my pile of shame is basically done.
Nice.
I've got nothing. I've got to go buy some more stuff.
Did you work out what your army's worth altogether now?
No, not yet. I will. I'll do it. Seeing as I've got nothing left to do, I'll do it for the next episode and count it all up. It's got to be coming up to close to at least 1,500, I would have thought. But I mean, this guy, he's only worth 65 on his own, so he's not like.
What is he? What's he special like? I don't know, special moves or whatever.
I think he's more of a buffer for other units. Hey, I can see you pulling face at me, Glenn. I had my both codexes out this time to have a little look. So
I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at Tom with his special moves. Special moves, yes.
You can throw it really hard and you can knock down a few other players. I think he's more of a buffer for others because he's so short range. Like his injector pistol is only 3 inches and his grenades are only 6, so he's not like sort of very elite. And then so I think really he's going to go next to a bunch of Plague Marines really to boost them because you have, when he gets killed, you can roll, if you roll a 4+, it'll explode. Any enemy within 6 inches gets a mortal wound. He has the ability for an aura. Any friendly units within 6 inches will get the AP and damage of their grenades increased. And then once per turn, he has the chance to boost a nearby friendly unit's plague weapon, which will add an extra mortal wound to any damage. So, yeah, on his own, he's going to be pretty useless. But in a squad, I think it might add a bit of firepower.
Nice.
Yeah, and if anybody cares, he used to be 74 points, and now he's 65. There you go.
Yeah, we don't care.
That's my research done. And other than that, me and Shane have done the first part of Omnis for Descent of Angels, and I think that's it. Oh, we played a game of Deathwing, didn't we, Tom? We did pretty well.
Yeah, basically, we got pissed out of our heads. Went on Deathwing, didn't know what we was doing, stumbling around in the dark, basically. Couple of Yanks popped on, and they're like, "Hello, brothers," taking it really seriously, of course. And we was like, "You're all right?" So then we started to play, and this guy was like a level, what was he, 172 or something mental.
He's completed it about 100 times, and he just comes on and does like the multiplayer and just smashes through it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then me and you were just getting like off left, right, and centre, and he's just turning around to find us.
And then what was it, like 200 seconds to respawn every time you die? You just have to sit there waiting.
Yeah, I don't think he had much time for us because he didn't hang around for long, did he?
No. Well, they both left us. Remember, they invited us to a party. We got involved. We was like, "Oh, we're doing really well now," and they just disappeared. Yeah. Like, oh, bye.
I think maybe one of us was too drunk, or both of us.
Definitely both of us.
How are your 10 captains coming on? Your kit bash team?
Oh, what, the Vanguard Veterans?
Yeah.
I primed them all. I've painted half of them in my contrast, Blood Angels contrast paint. The paint's going on. It's going on really well because I used that skeleton bone stuff. Just wanted to have them a bit lighter than when I put the silver on, the metallic look. I wanted them to look at like their own unit, sort of a bit specialised. And I'm really happy with the way they're turning out so far. But to be honest, I haven't had that much motivation to do them at the moment. As you know, I've been off kit bash and stuff again that I don't need whatsoever, but I enjoy it. So I've got another 3 models that I've done. But other than that, I haven't really done a lot, to be honest. I've started reading a new book. I say started, literally just like 5 pages in. But it's supposed to be decent, which is a Warhammer fantasy book. Valnir's Bane, it's called. And it's a Black Hearts novels trilogy. I've got all 3, just in case it's any good. I'll let you guys know how that goes. I don't know if you've read any of that, Glenn, because you used to read some of the Warhammer fantasy books, didn't you?
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar. If it is something I've read, I've forgotten about it, but I can't. Black Heart Trilogy sounds a little bit familiar, but not for a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, other than that, that's pretty much all I've done. So the 3 kit patches I've done, I did an Empress Champion, just because I quite like the Black Templars as well. So I wanted a model to paint for them. I've done another Librarian for my Blood Angels that I didn't need. but I like that. I wanted to do a new pose for them, and I also had a chaplain, so I didn't have a regular chaplain like a firstborn chaplain. So yeah, that's the 3 I've done for that, and that's it really. To be honest, that's me done for the last 3 weeks or whatever it is, 2 weeks. What about you, Glenn? You've been back to work, haven't you? So I bet you've done absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So my free time has taken a massive, massive dip. I've managed to do a bit of reading, bit of combat cards, and that's pretty much it.
Actually, that's one thing I probably should have mentioned as well, that we're all quite heavily into combat cards at the moment. So that is actually taking up a bit of my time, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I know. I wasn't keen last episode, but yeah, I've got the hang of it now, and it's become a problem.
Yeah, you understand what you're doing now.
Yeah.
It's nice to see like the little people here as well.
The little people?
Yeah, me and Shane like up here somewhere, and then there's you 3.
That's so harsh. I'm doing all right now. It's reset. I think I'm not last anymore. Am I, Dave?
I don't know. What level are you?
I'm above you because it reset. So now I'm above you.
Oh.
I'm halfway to Armageddon.
Yeah, you're above me then.
Yeah. I was feeling very smug, and then I looked and Tom was above me, so I was less smug.
Yeah, that's just because I literally have only played one game since it reset, but I reset on just over 2,500. So I didn't really have to do anything to be above you this time, which was good, which was nice. I could just picture your face.
But talking of King of the Leaderboard, Shane, what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, obviously, every waking moment has been on combat cards. As I said, I mean, I was doing this anyway. You said it's a problem. That's exactly it. It's a grind, and you just get addicted to all of the little mechanics. So if it's not the campaign, it's the PvP battles and stuff like that. So I just get sucked right into it. Which, speaking of which, I did notice our clan has changed to Eldar as its what's it called? That inspired
podcast.
by today's.
Yes.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good if it changes for each one. But yeah, other than that, I finished off my 5 assault intercessors, so they're done. So I've only got 3 eradicators to do now, and that's my 1,000 points done. Hopefully ready for our first battle. So I'm glad I've got that finally done. And then I also did, inspired by your rampant kit bashing, Tommy. I did my own one off a load of old spare parts I had from various bits and kits that had come together, and I just had enough to put together a little model. So I thought I'd paint that with traditional paints as well, so make it look like a bit more of a traditional Space Wolf, an old school one. Even tried a bit of edge highlighting and stuff like that, and it went okay. So I'm quite happy with them. And then I've also primed, as I said, the Eradicators, which I'm working through now, and then the original Bjorn model. So I'm going to get that done as well. And then, because I can't resist it, I went on eBay and had a look for the original Lehman Russ sculpt that used to be in Rogue Trader. So he's only a tiny little model, but I used to have it when I was a kid, and so I found it on eBay, and I'm currently bidding on that. So hopefully that'll be the next project.
What price are you at?
It's 20 quid. 20 quid at the moment for the model plus the 2 wolves.
What do you reckon you're gonna go up to before you give up?
I don't think it will go. I'll stop at. I'll probably stop at 25. Because I think there's another one on for buy it now for that. So if I can get it in the auction under that, then that'll do.
Not too bad.
But we'll see. As I said, it's more of something that reminded me of when I was a youngster and I picked one up, and I just like that model again. So he's nowhere. It's tiny and minuscule in comparison to the Forge World model, but it's just quite a nice old piece of Games Workshop history that I'd quite like to have.
It'll be nice for you to have, wouldn't it? Because you've got quite a lot of the old little metal figures as well, so that'd fit right in quite nicely.
Yeah, it wouldn't ever be one that I'd play on tabletop because it's it wouldn't be. It's just to have. It'd just be one that I'd paint up and to have. But yeah, hopefully I'll win it. We'll see.
Cool.
But yeah, that's me. That's been my 2 weeks, and of course, as you said, John, first part of Omnis for Descent of Angels, which we've got to book in the second half, of course, before we forget it and have to read it again.
Yeah.
Oh, John can't wait to read it again. He loves that book.
No, do you know what? It's actually quite good. I think talking about it with Shane is a lot better because you sort of validate some of your own opinions, and we sort of, I don't know, bits that one of us weren't too keen on, we sort of just talked our way through, and it's not too bad in the end. If you look over the writing style, the story is a good story, which is what we sort of settled on in the end.
Yeah.
And I think the next part is definitely going to be the battle part, because that's when it brings it more up to speed, and we're going to see some of the Starties and the God Emperor and all that good stuff.
It came to the opinion that it's like it is good because so all of the set pieces, like the combat, the fights, all of that is all really, really good, and it is like 15 hours, and like so all of the big set pieces, like when we were talking about them, it was like, yeah, this bit's amazing. It's just all the bits in between are a bit long-winded and maybe not required. As I said, I reckon you could cut that book down by 100, 150 pages, and still you would have had a good story.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I think maybe that's what the guy is then, because like I say, I didn't actually find it that bad of a book. I know we've taken a piss out of it a little bit, but you know, it was okay. It was readable. Like most of the stuff in the Black Library is really for me, and well, people like me and John just sort of read anything. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's got space marines in, so
Exactly.
But yeah, I think he's more of a short story writer by the seams of it, isn't it? Because like the 15 hours was only 240 pages or something like that.
Yeah, it's short.
15 hours, sorry. Yeah, so give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's got some talent there. It's just maybe not for him to write in the Heresy, because that was quite a boring book.
Yeah, I think as well. It's just because going back the second time, like the sort of the awe of a new Heresy book is gone, and I was just reading it with a more critical eye for what we was doing. And that's all it is, really. It's fine. It's a good book. But yeah. Other than that, has anybody else done or got anything else to add for this part?
I don't think so.
Right. So for this week on this episode, we're going to try our best efforts to stay current with something that's a current release or about to come out. Glenn, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about most all things Eldar. With the new Dark Eldar or Drukhari book coming out, we thought it'd be a good time to sort of expand the knowledge on some of the other races that people might not be hugely familiar with, especially the new starters. I know on this podcast we're very Imperium or power armored focused, so I don't know how much the guys had looked into the other armies before they'd decided to have a go with what they picked. So just to give you a little brief rundown of who the Eldar are in general, they're a race of very intelligent psychic potential in all of them, created millions and millions of years ago, somewhere around 60 million years ago, by a race called the Old Ones. And their first sort of major conflict was fighting the Necron Tur, who became the Necrons. Shortly after that, the Old Ones disappeared. The Eldar sort of rose to prominence and took more over the galaxy, using a lot of the technology that the Old Ones had sort of taught them how to get around, and that's where the webways and things like that came from. It's just how they get around more quickly than sort of ship to ship or planet to planet via ships. So with the rise to power, they became a little bit arrogant because they didn't have any great threat across the galaxy. They had battles with various other races, but nothing could stand up to them. So they became very, very lazy. All of their production was automated, so that all they had was basically millions of years to seek out new pleasures, new experiences, and that ultimately led to this slow decline.
I was waiting for someone to go, oh, hell yeah.
What do you mean someone? We all know who it was going to be.
It was always going to be Dave. Yeah. So with Dave's interruption aside, they spent sort of thousands and thousands of years sort of dedicating themselves to pushing their experiences further and further into some of the more extreme and hedonistic ways. They had thousands of planets dedicated just solely to pleasure. And because they're so psychically charged, whilst they're not necessarily all psychers, all of the energy, all of the lust, and all of the greed and the passion and everything like that, all of that psychic energy sort of coalesced in the warp. And that led to the birth of Slaanesh, which is known as the Fall. So with the birth of Slaanesh, we ended up with billions and billions of Eldar dying. The only ones that survived were people like the Exodites, who left to the very edges of the galaxy to try and escape what they seen as the fall of the Eldar. They were thinking, this isn't for us, too much butt stuff, we're going to leave. So it was them. Several of the planets, they abandoned the planets to leave on craft worlds. They became the sort of modern day Eldari that we've got today. And then in the webway, you had a few different, so you had the Dark Eldar, Drukhari, who carried on with their evil ways. And you also had the Harlequins, who sort of lived and roamed the webways, and they were generally protected as well because of the slightly strange nature of the webway. The psychics backlash couldn't really touch them. This also resulted in the Eye of Terror, which is sort of in 40k at the minute, but it cleared a lot of the warp storms, and it led to the Great Crusade. So we're talking about 30k, Great Crusade, just before the heresy kicked off. It enabled humanity to go out and claim all of the lost worlds that had been consumed by all of the warp storms that were going on up until that point. So that's a little bit of a brief history.
That's it for this episode.
No, we're now more up to like sort of the modern 40k stuff. So that's going to be a little bit different, and hopefully you guys have a little bit of an idea of where that stands at the minute.
So, going back to the old ones, obviously they created the Eldari specifically at the time to try and fight the Necrontyr, wasn't it? It's the war in heaven, and then because that...
Well, it's the stuff that I've read and sort of researched, not specifically to fight them. They seeded a lot of planets as they were going around, because basically they were the first sort of conquerors of the known galaxy, and they seeded a lot of planets. They created the precursor to the orcs. There's even potential.
Were they the Groks? Is that what they were called?
Or it's like Crocs or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Crocs. That's it. It's like an anagram of orc, but with a G in there.
Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah.
Is potential that they also seeded Terra as well back in the day. So they're kind of responsible for the development of humanity as well. But yeah, they pretty much created most of the known species.
So whereabouts did the Catan come into all of that? Because I know they originally fighting against the old ones before they fought against the Necrontyr, or the Necrontyr were under their sort of like their command at one point, weren't they?
So the Catan did a deal with the Necrontyr because the old ones wouldn't give the Necrontyr like any aid in, helping them, because the Necrontyr lived in a really inhospitable part of the galaxy or world, and so they were dying like cancer-ridden, very short, miserable lives. and the Satan gave them the ability. They said, "Oh, we'll help you out," and it was the Satan and Necrontyr versus the old ones, effectively. And then the Necrontyr turned on the Satan and captured it. Very, very short. There's a lot more detail and stuff like that, but that's my effective understanding of it.
Cool.
And then back in first and second edition. So first being Rogue Trader, and then second edition being the first I think I got. Back then, the Eldar and the Dark Eldar were just that. They were Eldar and Dark Eldar. And it was only, I don't know when it changed, but then they introduced the names Eldari and Drukhari in the same way. I think it's when, I don't think it was Space Marines. But the rumour has it that it was all to do with a copyright issue that Games Workshop had, and that they were trying to copyright the terms Space Marine, Eldar, and Dark Eldar, and it got thrown out of court because it was too broad and had been used too much at that point by other people. And so they had to come up with alternate names for them.
It wouldn't be the first sort of case like that. I know there's similar with why you no longer have Ultramarines blue paint as well.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, there's certain things that Games Workshop over the years have gone, yes, we're gonna copyright. We can't. Change the name. We'll still do the same thing. Yeah, it's not unheard of for them to do that. But you know, I can see where the courts are coming from.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of usage, especially for Space Marines. You know, there's no way you're going to get that copyrighted.
But that's why you have and I don't think it's coincided with the birth of Primaris, but obviously Primaris, Eldari, and Drukhari are all copyrighted, whereas Space Marines, Eldar, and Dark Eldar, they couldn't do it. So that is one of the possible areas that all came from.
So where's the Astra Militarium Codex as well then?
I think that's why it went from Imperial Guard to Astra. I think that's why all of those names changed, because they couldn't copyright, because they were, I think it'd been so many years in popular usage that it was just like we can't do anything, so it all changed.
Yeah, I think I would have been about, I want to say about 7th edition.
Yeah, I think that timeline would be hang on.
How long ago? 7th?
Well, I remember the Guard Codex coming out when I still worked at GW, so that's at least 6 years ago. But it wouldn't have been, you know, it would have been a few years before that, so maybe 8-ish, in and around that kind of area. Might even have been 6th edition then. Don't know. Yeah, it some time ago. In the not massively distant past. But I think we've got off topic here a little bit.
We have back to so that's more real world lore as opposed to actual 40k lore. I suppose
so maybe we could start with the 5 that Glenn sort of briefly touched on anyway. There's 5 main races in the Eldari, is that correct? But you two probably know, or like the main factions, sorry. And there's obviously the Corsairs and Pirates and little bits and pieces, but there's the 5. So I've got them written down, so I don't know too much about them. But you've got the Craft World, like you said, Glenn, which is called the Asherani as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was looking forward to hearing some of the pronunciations because my Eldari sucks ass. So I'm not going to be able to pronounce most of it.
Asherani.
We'll go with that.
There's multiple different Craft Worlds. So within the Craft World as a faction, you have like Craft World Ulthway, which is where Eldrad Ulthran started, but is now exiled and is running around with Ivrain. So you've got multiple different Craft Worlds. So I can't remember all of them, but Ulthway is the one that I always remember.
Cool. So sorry, Glenn.
Essentially your Craft Worlds are similar to your chapters. They've got the unique sort of special rules, their own specific history, and then if you want to make up your own Craft World, like you make up your own chapter, you can do that and sort of pick which way, because all of the Craft Worlds have their own very unique way of fighting, like things like Beltan, loads of aspect warriors, both way, loads of psychers, and like Samhain, loads of jet bikes, very fast moving. You know, so they've all got their own individual style of battle, style of play, special characters, things like that. Just depends on what tickles your fancy or what color you like painting, basically.
So all the craft worlds have got their own sort of unique little standout point about them, but are they all peaceful with one another? So you could sort of call them one sort of faction, if you know what I mean, because they're all on the same type of side.
Yeah, I don't think any of the craft worlds fight against each other because the race is so under strength and dying that there's sort of no notable conflict in my mind between craft worlds that I can think of anyway. There might be, someone could prove me wrong, but I can't think of any.
So were they floating around individually doing their own thing, or are they like a fleet trying to protect each other? Or they're massive, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like continent-sized ships.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're pretty much independent. They'll fight with other Eldar. And other races as well. They're not opposed to a sneaky alliance if it suits their purposes. Because the Farseers or their Psychers are very, very good at looking into the future and will happily sacrifice tens to hundreds of human worlds if it'll avoid conflict that would result in Eldar deaths.
Yeah, a case in point. Spoiler alert, John. You might want to put your fingers in your ears for this one.
I'll take him out for a second.
Yeah. Eldrad and Altway and Cadia, the fall of Cadia. Yeah. Okay. You can go back in now. That's all I'll say on it. You're all good. You're safe.
Are we safe?
Yeah, I won't say any more.
Okay.
Yeah, they also led to the rise of Ghazghkull as well.
Yep.
They're sort of the reason why he's as big of a menace. Because I think they sort of killed off a different Wa, and then Ghazghkull rose to prominence because of that. But Ghazghkull went off to Armageddon, didn't really bother the Eldar, so they just sort of went, eh. They done their job. But anyway, back to Tom. You have one down. What's your next one?
Oh, yeah, no, one more thing on that. I was just going to say, every single one I've written out here, when I was doing my little bit of research that I did, they've all seemed to got their own way of protecting their souls from Slaanesh, obviously, because like you said, Slaanesh, or that, as they call her, she who thirsts, is gets every single one of their souls once they die. So with the craft world, Eldari, we were just talking about, so they use psychocrystalline soul stones to capture and protect their souls from Slaanesh, which are like ingrained into their ship. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So in their armor, isn't it?
On most of the Eldar armor, you'll see like the little brown gems on them. That's what captures the soul if they die, and then they collect them up. They put them into what's called the Infinity Circuit in the ship, and it sort of protects the soul, but is kind of a little bit like purgatory because they don't pass on. It's just sort of like this, meh. Like people can come and communicate with them, and sort of like they can take them out and put them into like sort of the wraith constructs so they can return to fight, but they don't sort of feel anything. And it's
it's supposed to be like a dream. It's supposed to be like a dream for them if they get put in wraith, like a wraith guard.
They're
a lot of them are quite opposed to it.
Yeah.
There was what was the guy's name in Fulgrim who had the happy ending? He was the Wraith Lord.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the Wraith Lord that ended up getting his soul stone crushed, but that was Eldrad. So Eldrad Ulfran is the one that meets Fulgrim.
Yeah.
From at that point, he's Craftworld of Ways Farseer.
Kieran Goldhelm.
That's it. He's
Goldhelm.
Goldhelm. He's predicting.
Very Slaanesh.
He's predicting the fall of Chaos or the fall of one of the Primarchs. They just can't quite, work out. Well, they know it's going to be Horus.
It's Horus, isn't they?
But they don't know whether Fulgrim is turned or whether he's tainted. Of course, you find out he is. But and that's when it all kicks off.
Yeah.
And that also, it's an interesting point as well. I'm sure we'll come into it. Is where you get an avatar of Cain as well in that scene. But we'll save that. Back to you, Tom. We've just done the craft worlds.
Cool. So we've gone through the craft worlds. Next, I've got written down is the Drukhari. I suppose we'll leave them because we're going to talk about them quite a lot anyway towards the end. So I'll go on to the next, which I've got written down, which is the Harlequins. Now, all I've got just a little paragraph down, which they're protected supposedly. Don't know if this is out of date lore or what, but by the laughing god Segarak. Is that correct, Glenn? If you,
I go more Kegarak.
Kegarak. Oh, pronunciation. Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Pronunciation aside. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was asking. Yeah, that's the most up-to-date thing that I can find as well. Yeah, he, she, whichever it is, I think it's he, the laughing god, will claim the souls for himself.
Yeah.
Before Slaanesh gets his tentacly, clawy hands on them, whatever she has.
So these Harlequins, they're supposedly the keepers of the repository of chaos knowledge, which is also known as the Black Library.
Correct.
There you go. And they're the only Eldar or faction, if you like, or whatever you want to call it, to move freely among all of the others. So they can go between any of them. And they're sort of allowed in to do their thing, whatever their thing is. And that's pretty much all I've got written down here. Anyone else knows about
I was going to say with the Harlequins, they can be drawn from any of the Eldar or Dark Eldar, so Eldari or Drukhari race. So the Harlequins can be made up of Eldari that come from any background. So they could be aspect warriors, they could be Drukhari, they could be, from a craft world. It's just at a point that they get called or effectively selected to become a Harlequin or one of the players, and they have different, again, within the Harlequins they have different sub factions. So they could be, they do, there's the light ones which do more of a the dance, I can't remember, the dance of light. Then you've got the ones that are twilight, so they do both, and it's called like the dance of twilight. And then you have the dark ones which do like the dance of darkness or whatever it is. But like, for example, if they do that, the dark ones will tend to do it when they're up against the wall, and it's effectively sacrificing themselves to allow everyone else to escape. So it's all very spiritual, or it tries to be very spiritual.
So all the rest of the Eldari as a whole, they all sort of know that the Harlequins are needed for their whole entire species as one to survive, or what's the reason that they sort of they let them do whatever they want to do and sort of go between factions, if you know what I mean? Is there a particular reason for them? And obviously they keep this repository of knowledge. So is that to the benefit of everyone in the Eldari race, or obviously I suppose it is?
They're sort of living history as well, because at the end of the day they're performers, so they go around the various craft worlds and into Comarath as well, the Dark Eldar Are, and they tell the story of sort of like the fall of the Eldar or the history. So they're basically living history along with being great warriors and protectors of the Black Library. So that's sort of why they're accepted everywhere. It's sort of like a passing circus, but that people actually want to go and see.
So moving on to the next one, or has anyone else got anything to mention about these little fuckers?
They're some of the best combat cards you can get.
Yeah, I haven't actually got any of them yet. I don't think anyway.
They can be pretty spicy with the old hand-to-hand combat, but anyway.
Nice. Look forward to that. I must say, I'll add here actually, when I was looking up some of the models, I think they're probably my favourite models as well. If I was to ever buy any Eldari models, I think I'd go for them because they look pretty fun to paint. So yeah, anyway, moving on to the next ones. They are called. Go on, Dave. Come on.
Like a nightmare to paint. They'd be awful.
Yeah, it makes you better though, doesn't it?
I think that they're a challenge. Yeah.
If they're not black, white, or red, Dave ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Glenn mentioned them earlier already, but the Exodites, which are the ones that fled before the fall of the Eldari Empire, or whatever you want to call it back then, before Slaanesh came about, and they fled to these worlds they named Maiden Worlds, I believe. Don't know if you want to illuminate us on that, Glenn or Shane, since you're the two that knows everything and we know absolutely bugger all.
You want to take it, Shane, or?
Well, I was going to say I know more about the Maiden Worlds than I do about the actual Exodites, because the Exodites that I know what they are as in theory. I know more about the Maiden Worlds than I do the Exodites.
Oh, you can talk about the Maiden Worlds then, and I'll illuminate them on a little bit of the Exodites as well.
Okay. So, well, the Maiden Worlds are, and you come across them in, John's already touched it, in Fulgrim as well. They're worlds that are, they're not, well, in most cases, they're not settled. So they are, you know, when the Emperor's children come across them first time, they're kind of like unblemished, beautiful worlds that have got, you know, really rich sort of biospheres but are in harmony, and they're basically these worlds that are pre-terraformed and waiting for settling, and they're there for the Eldari to settle when they get there and when is right for them, based on what the Farseers predict. But like as I said in the example we saw in the Emperor's Children in Fulgrim, they, for whatever reason, the Eldari haven't settled them yet, and so they remain empty, but also the Eldari's property, which obviously is where they get into the conflict then with the Imperium of Man, because they're like, well, if you're not on the planet, we're going to have it. And so that's part of it. But basically, they're there for the Eldari to populate once if they ever potentially rise again.
So are there any that are populated? Just because when I was reading up, I didn't read too much about it, but they did say that some of the Maiden Worlds were populated by the Exodites, or maybe the original ones who left, maybe. Was that where it all began, or is that just... Because obviously I just read it up from fandom.
That's where the Exodites fled to. So some of them will have been populated. Some of them will have been lost to the Imperium because they're just worlds dotted everywhere. Because it was pretty much across the galaxy. It wasn't just like, right, here's where the Maiden Worlds are, here's some other stuff, here's something. They were dotted all over the place because travel's no issue for Eldar. They've just got their warp gates to go through. So they go, right, need to go over there, boom, into that gate, out, other side of the galaxy. The Exodites, sort of, the only ones that really survived were the ones that sort of fled right out to the edge of the galaxy. And the best way to sum them up is they're a simpler people. They don't rely on the same level of technology. They have a much more rural, simple life to sort of suppress all of their sort of desires that built up pre-fall. But the
Amish.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Eldar Amish.
Yeah,
Amish Eldari.
Not massively wide of the mark. The only sort of really interesting bit about them is they will use pretty much dinosaurs in battle. So they don't have sort of grav tanks, jet bikes, and stuff like that. They will ride or strap massive guns to dinosaurs. They call them dragons, but yeah, they're essentially giant ass dinosaurs with Eldar guns strapped to the sides of them. And if you look up some of the people's work and conversions on Exodite models, some of them are utterly ridiculous, but in the most fantastic way possible. You know, it's just this huge ass T-Rex looking thing with spikes all over it and two giant guns coming down the side, and they're to represent like a wave serpent or a falcon or, you know, some bit of Eldar tech, but they've just gone, yeah, but it's a dinosaur. Boom, dinosaur.
I'll have to look them up, man.
Sold.
That
Can you-
right up my street.
Can you buy those? Or are they things that people are making?
No, it's sort of like make it yourself because there's no official rules for Exodites. But if you want to sort of like do a scratch built, well, like I say, you want to build some guys on jet bikes, you get like mini like Raptors or something and stick a guy on the back of it, and there you go. That's a jet bike. it's sort of like a couch size. It's generally fine in like a friendly game, and I've seen a few Exodite armies up at sort of Warhammer World as well, where they took them, but they were very clear beforehand. It was like, right, this big ass dinosaur with this on it, that is, like I say, that's a wave serpent. Yeah. That's that. So as long as you make your opponent aware of what's going on with it, it's not really an issue. But there is no official models, John. You have to do yourself.
My kids are growing out of all their dinosaur toys, so I'm going to start gluing Eldar toys, Eldar models to Jurassic Park models.
Yeah, that'll work. It's a good starting point.
Yeah.
I just can't get the Amish out of my head now. I've just got these Eldar with these massive pointy ears, but with them silly little beards and pitchforks.
There's a
weird out,
or just one of the hats on top of their elongated.
I was going to say, they're right there as a kit bash if ever I saw it happen.
Yeah.
That would look, yeah, man, that would look awesome.
Can you get a Weird Al Yankovic model with an Eldari hat?
God.
So apparently, with these Exodites, anyway, they sort of use the planet itself, sort of similar to the way that the craft world Eldari use their craft world itself to sort of store their souls. Then is that correct? Anyone know anything about that?
Yeah, if anybody played Final Fantasy VII?
I just downloaded it. Actually, it's free. It was free.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Is that the new one? The update?
No,
yeah,
well, I don't know if it's the same in the new one because they've dicked around with the storyline a little bit. But in the original, you've got the race called the Ancients, and when they die, they sort of return to the planet. You see that their essence sort of like filter down into the planet. That's the way I kind of perceive it to be. I don't know if somebody played Final Fantasy VII and went, yeah, that sounds like a good way for them to do it, or
it works for me. I mean, it makes sense. Basically, they want any way they can to stop their souls getting into She Who First arena, because otherwise, then they're in a world of pain, quite literally.
So yeah, that's pretty much the Exodites covered. Would be nice to get some models of them, I suppose, since they're one of the 5 main parts of the Eldari. So the only other one is of the main ones is the Ynnari, which I believe are quite new. From the they only sprung up in that era in Dominus. So I won't know a lot about that myself. Not like I know anything about the other ones anyway. But so they worship Ynid, and they are called the Reborn, and their high priestess is someone that you guys mentioned earlier, which is High Priestess Yvraine. And they seek the full awakening of their god to do battle with Slaanesh.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows a little bit about that,
they may be potentially, they may not be, but they may be the saving faction of the Eldari potentially, depending on how the narrative goes. Obviously, Yvraine is also Gilliman's girlfriend, and apparently helped to get him back.
So is it actual fact they're actually together? Love.
Oh no! I don't think no. They are not. They are not a canon power couple in 40k.
Jesus.
No, but she.
You never know.
So the Ynnari and Yvraine did work to get Gilliman back. So that's part of the, I suppose, heretical storyline with Gilliman's return. In that, like, it required the help of filthy Xenos to actually bring back the Avenging Sun. But yeah, anyway, so not only are they potentially the saviors of the Eldari, they could also be they could have a hand in awakening or reviving or even reincarnating the Emperor. Again, there's stories about how that could narratively happen. Obviously, it won't, because why would Games Workshop ever do that? But it could potentially happen if you looked at it in the right angle, in the right direction. So right now, as far as lore goes, and a lore nexus, as it were, they're very hot as a faction, because they've got their hand in all of these different bits and pieces. And I think Yvraine, this links us quite nicely to the Drukhari. She used to be in one of the fighting pits in, is it Cormorant? With, is it Lilith? Lilith?
Lilith Hesperax.
Lilith Hesperax, that's exactly it. And I think effectively she was killed to be resurrected as a follower of Yened, their god of the dead, as it were. And so a lot of the narrative direction is that they are potentially, potential saviors of the Eldari, but a lot of people like Eldrad, but not Eldrad, because one of the reasons he's exiled is he's actually helping them. But people like Eldrad, so in the other Ulthway Farseers, they can't see, or they just don't know what's going to happen with these Ynnari, and if they manage to raise Yened to fight Slaanesh, they don't know whether it's actually going to be the entire doom of the Eldar or the Eldari, or the rather than the doom, their resurrection. And so some of them are uncertain, and so a lot of the Eldari are split on what's happening. And Eldrad himself, who's still knocking around even at this point, has kind of, that's one of the reasons he's in exile, is because he's helping the Ynnari in their kind of their pursuit to raise Yened, because it could be the resurrection of the Eldari. And while all this is happening, the Drukhari, they kind of don't really give a shit. They're just on Comra doing their thing, their space vampire stuff. So
from what I've read for the Ynnari is that all of the Eldar need to die to sort of spawn Yened.
For them,
is that correct?
Yeah.
So
that's, I think, at least a significant number of them anyway. So there needs to be like a catastrophic death for them, but they'll all rise again, if that makes sense. And that's where like the Farseers of Ulthway are like, we can't see it, so we're not backing it. Whereas Eldrad's kind of doing it on faith.
Yeah, because that's how it was before Slaanesh, wasn't it? Their souls used to go into the warp, and then they used to be reborn again.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So how is that different though? Because to get a avatar of Cain, don't they have to sacrifice themselves?
That's an aspect warrior though.
Oh, no, all right, so that's different.
An Exarch or something I read.
Yeah, what the difference is that that's one individual who's sacrificed, but obviously his soul isn't lost. Whereas where they're talking about with the Ynnari is like the mass death of Eldari, and then them going into the warp, I believe, which is where they're like, it's a bit contentious, because they're like, well, no, because that's where Slaanesh is.
So they have to be sacrificed to Slaanesh on the off chance that it was right, and they might get to come back from that.
Well, if they raise Yened, then and he defeats Slaanesh, then it's all good, right? But
and I suppose
if you're what I've done as well is that they're looking for, is it the Crone Swords or something like that?
So the Crone Swords are all from the original Eldari Crone worlds, which were I believe the original populated worlds before the fall.
So once they get that is what Yened's going to use to defeat Slaanesh. But one of the Crone Swords is in Slaanesh's palace, so good luck convincing people to go there.
I'm sure you'd go there, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, well volunteers.
One way ticket.
There's a lot going against them, but if they succeed, then as I said, that's I think that's where the schism is in the Eldari race at the moment, because there's a lot of them that go, look, we're petering out anyway. We're on the brink of extinction as a race. There's not enough of us anyway, so we may as well go all in, like everything on red. But if it comes up Slaanesh, then the Eldari's gone, right?
Yeah, because if you're Dark Eldar, the pain and the pleasure are basically one, aren't they? Like, you're enjoying it. But if you're Eldar,
they still don't want to they still don't want to lose their souls to Slaanesh.
No, but if you're if you're Eldar and you get sucked into the warp, you're only getting the pain element. You don't get any pleasure from it. So the sacrifice necessarily worth it, or
But
would they get a bit
so
higher?
slightly different because the Drukhari, if they are killed and they lose their souls, they're at that point they're the same as the Eldari.
Right.
So they won't get any pain or pleasure. So they're not. So the Drukhari are not Slaanesh worshipping. They're not a Slaanesh worshipping faction.
Right. Okay.
So they are. They're in. What they are into is what we talked about earlier. That the hedonistic experience. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Glenn, because I could be talking gibberish. But they're into the hedonistic experience and everything, as opposed to just like falling to Slaanesh. And they don't want to lose their souls either.
Right.
Yeah, isn't it by doing like torturing and causing pain and all that? That's how they get sort of fulfilled again and keeps them alive. So that stops them falling to Slaanesh, right? Like, well,
that sort of fends Slaanesh off, doesn't it? They're just fending Slaanesh off for as long as they can, really.
Hang on, Glenn wants to say something.
Yeah, it's more a case of as their souls, because their soul is constantly getting picked at, so they replenish their souls by inflicting pain and torment and doing all the depraved shit they do. That replenishes their souls, because otherwise Slaanesh is just drawn out of them little bit by bit. That's why if they haven't been sort of indulging in these sort of rampant displays of evilness, they're all sort of withered and husk-like and things like that. But once they've done whatever they need to do, then they become sort of rejuvenated and youthful and much, much healthier, for want of a better word. But yeah, they're constantly being, their souls constantly being sort of siphoned off. It's just buying time. It's not even a case of we'll do this so this doesn't happen. It's we need to do this, otherwise we're just going to become withered husks of nothingness.
So there's no upside to the Eldar taking the chance and sacrificing themselves, because if they get killed, they're just going to suffer, aren't they? So it's not even worth it. That's why they're probably quite against taking the chance on just pure faith rather than.
But having said that, it's pretty much, isn't it pretty much like knowledge amongst the Eldar that they can only do all of what they're doing to save their souls for so long before they end up ends up getting them all anyway, or has things changed now because of the Ynnari thing, obviously, and all that? But before that, wasn't they all pretty much sort of like just, well, it's going to happen eventually. We just do it for as long as we can, see if we can get away with it.
Yeah, because the old lore before you need models and sort of psychic awakening thing that brought all this about. It was just sort of a little, maybe throwaway couple of lines that some Eldar believe that the god of death is the only way that they're going to sort of come through this, so everyone's going to have to die eventually, and only then will they rise up. Now they've sort of expanded the story and moved it forward. It's probably one of the bigger jumps of sort of like storyline progression the Games Workshop's done in the past maybe 30 years. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit behind on it all. I know bits and pieces of it just from, what bits I've read and what I've spoke to different people about, but a lot of it is, I think we're up to a point where it's kind of set again. We're not really going to see a definitive answer as to what's going to happen one way or the other. It's kind of like how 40k was left for years and years. It's sort of like right at that teetering point of, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We don't know. We're going to let you kind of decide it in your own mind and not sort of move the story at all from here.
So where are we off to next? We've done our five.
Oh no! So
factions.
the fifth was the Drukhari, which we said we'd come back to.
Okay, cool.
Just an honourable mention before then. The only other thing that they mentioned in what I was looking at is there's a lot of Corsairs as well, supposedly. Eldari Corsairs, just pirates roaming around, who are sort of almost like a mini faction, but they didn't really go into detail. And I didn't research it.
Pirates, other than the ones
other than John's
made
pirates.
There are no pirates in 40k. That's why I came up with it. It's a
for good
unique
reason,
idea.
by the sounds of it.
Oh,
Walking the plank into the reactor, remember? What the hell was we going on about?
that was you. That was you added
Yeah.
that nonsense to my well thought out story.
I'll tell you what we didn't talk about the avatars too much, other than that's what we were up to, was the avatars.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of avatars, I unlocked an avatar on combat cards. They look fucking sick.
There's not too many of them. I think one per craft world. I've got a little bit written down about the avatars, which is probably my favourite thing out of all the Eldari, the most intriguing at least.
Are you going to share it with us? Or?
Oh no! Are we ready to go? Because I can't see Glenn, so I didn't know if he was back or not yet.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. So
just like you were really excited about something and then stared really hard at it. It's just like, oh yeah. Oh.
I thought I was going to let Shane, because he brought it up really, so I thought I'd let him go with the beginning bit on what he's got to say about the old avatars.
Oh, so the only bit I was going to, obviously, both on the tabletop and in the lore is, a big part of the Eldari is their avatars, which are, as it suggests, they are avatars of their gods. Probably the most famous one being the Avatar of Cain, much maligned on certain corners of the internet. As if you want to get Space Marine over, you have him beat an Avatar of Cain. But other than that, that's like they are supposed to be like the biggest and the baddest. And obviously the Eldar gods, or the Eldari gods, all have their own backstories as well. So Cain is their he's their god of war, but he was there to show them how to protect themselves. And each of the different gods of the Eldari has a different, so some of them are there to teach them how to defend themselves or protect themselves, and some of them are there to teach them how to learn, and so on and so forth. And I can't remember which Eldari god it is, but she is a prisoner of Nurgle, grandfather Nurgle, and there's this whole almost like Roman or Greek gods pantheon going on with Nurgle and some of the Chaos gods and the Eldari gods. But anyway, that aside,
I think it's Aisha.
Yeah,
Aisha,
that's it.
Something like that. Yeah.
That aside, like the Avatar of Cain, which is one of the most famous ones, is effectively, I think we said it before, like an exarch has to be given up as, well, we say sacrifice, but effectively they turn into the Avatar of Cain, and then it's an embodiment of the Eldari wrath, the Eldari like combat prowess, with probably one of the best early fights that you see in the Heresy, again in Fulgrim, where Fulgrim battles one of these Avatars of Cain, and although he wins, he comes away with a fair few wounds for his troubles. So they're pretty OP, badass units that the Eldari can take advantage of, both in the lore and tabletop. And there's a few different ones that go above like your standard unit, but I can't remember those ones. Like I think it's a Phoenix Lord, but I don't know whether I don't think that's a full blown Avatar. Glenn, you got anything on the Avatar?
Yeah, you pretty much summed up everything about them. I can't remember if it's in the Eldar Codex or it's a little short story I read, but I remember reading about what goes into summoning the Avatar of like the young king, the exarch chosen. He goes into the chamber. There's hate. There's like basically the entire craft world, like the ship that they're all living on. It starts vibrating and it rumbles with the power of the Avatar being reborn, essentially. I've done a really crap job of explaining that, but if you ever find the random little short story that I've read, it is really interesting because you don't get an awful lot of good Xeno descriptive stuff in 40k. So whenever you get like a decent bit, it's worth sort of seeking it out and reading about it.
Nice. the only bit that I've got written down about him is just like a really clipped bit about the background of where Kane, apparently Kayla Mensha Kane.
Yeah.
So when Slaanesh come about, he did battle to eliminate the Eldari gods in the warp. But Kane at the time was too strong to completely destroy it forever. But he also couldn't beat Slaanesh. There's no chance of that happening. So he fled the warp and found refuge dispersed among the infinity circuits. I think you mentioned them earlier, Glenn or Shane, which is obviously psychically reactive wraith bone in the hearts of the craft world. So that's supposedly how Kane got to where he is in their massive ships.
That would make sense. It would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate. But because I know, as I said, in the lore of their gods, he was trying to rescue Isha from Nurgle, and I believe she still resides in his garden. Because I don't know, but I think she's the one that provides like remedies to Nurgle's plagues if she can get it out. That then helps not only the Eldari but also anyone afflicted by Nurgle's rot.
What a bitch.
She's the one that's sorting us out with this coronavirus vaccine.
She needs to pull her finger out then, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, terrible.
So she can only get so much out. Like the warp's a pretty sticky place.
Got a point.
So anyway, I think that then brings us on to the Drukhari. That was everything Eldari. I think it's now Drukhari, right? Or Dark Eldar.
We'll go Dark Eldar. It's easier to pronounce.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, it's one of these things with Warhammer as well. It's basically space elves and space dark elves. That's what it is. But a Dark Eldar.
Yeah. So basically, they reside in the Webway in a place called Comra, which is a giant city where space and time doesn't really affect it. It's ruled over by Azrael Vecht. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I probably butchered it. And has been for, I think it's about 8,000 or 10,000 years now. And their society sort of split into sort of three main factions, at least as noticeably on the tabletop. So you've got sort of the Kabalite faction, which is your warrior classes, your everyday soldier type things. You've got the witch cults, which are your gladiatorial hit fighters, guys flying around on jetbikes, on hoverboards, or just sort of bog standard gladiatorial competence. And then you've also got the homunculus covens, and they're sort of the flesh weavers and the guys who do all the funky experiments and end up creating things like the grotesque sort of big hulking monstrosities pumped full of drugs and stimulants just to make them as destructive as possible. Similar to the Eldar, they've got an amazing grasp on technology, them being from the same race, although their technology is of the evil variety. So whereas Eldar have things like a bright lance, Dark Eldar have the dark lance. It's similar stuff, but they have their own sort of twisted spin on everything. And they focus mostly on doing sort of pirate type raids into real space, sort of just appearing at a webway portals, snatching up loads of prisoners, because that's the basic currency, because they need someone to torture and experiment on. That's what keeps Slaanesh at bay. Oh, excuse me.
They are also apparently with this new codex. They are apparently really good. So it's total aside, and again away from the lore. But I watched a battle report the other day between Death Guard and Drukhari. So using the new codex, and they gave the Death Guard a bit of a tanking. which was unexpected because pre-Codex, they were, I think that the terminology that was always used as a bit of a glass hammer. They could hit hard, but they could be broken quite easily. But apparently some of the changes have made them quite good. So it was quite one-sided actually, which I was surprised about because Death Guard are this Codex round have been very good.
That is quite surprising because the Death Guard Codex hasn't even been out that long.
Mm.
Usually it's a noticeable power creep from like the stuff that came out right at the start versus the newest stuff. There's quite a big difference. But to hear like the Death Guard, they've only been out a short space of time, and not very many codexes ago either, to now be getting their ass kicked by pointy-eared space dwellers. It's quite surprising.
I won't be playing any Drukhari players, so fine by me.
It's one of the tabletop tactic videos. I will share it afterwards and we can link to it. But it's
Cool.
it was like good to see because up until that point I'd just seen a lot of battle reports where the Death Guard kept winning.
It's given you some faith and hope, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
You're going to beat me just on pure ignorance by the time we get around to actually playing.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I could just sit there and make up all sorts of rules.
Yeah. Although
I get the space pups reroll. What's that? No, it doesn't matter.
Although I don't think anyone wants to play you now that we know that you're getting thrashed by your son. Yeah.
I did have a rematch the other day, and that ended slightly differently. But I can't continue to beat him, otherwise he won't want to play it anymore.
Oh, fair enough. Good excuse.
Yeah. Anyway, that real world tangent aside, lore-wise, please continue. Then. Sorry.
I was just going to say, has anybody read or looked up anything particularly interesting that they've come across for the Drukhari or Dark Eldar?
Dave, you was reading a book when you're with Drukhari in.
One of the Macarius Crusade ones have got Drukhari in.
Fifth of Demetrius, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's a really good story. And that's sort of what interested me about Drukhari as well. But I'm glad to hear that they're actually more of a potent sort of tabletop faction now. I think a lot of the old Xenos ones are quite forgotten about. But Drukhari, especially in that book, the way that they're written, they do sound like really deadly and really like they're just going to fuck people up because they can, and they're going to do it slowly and the most painful way because they're better than you. So I do like that. Hopefully that's going to be reflected in the new codex. We'll see.
Do you reckon because you said obviously when we were talking about what our next projects are, do you think you're going to commit to Drukhari eventually, or?
Well, they're mostly black, so you will, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're way up there on the list of ones I want to get. But I do want to complete the Crusade first. There's a few other sort of factions that I want to get, but yeah, the Drukhari are definitely up there.
No, yeah. Do you know what? I think they are probably out of all of the Eldari little factions, whatever. I think they're probably the coolest looking. Definitely the models. They look pretty aggressive. I don't really like the clean lines of the regular Eldar, if you want to call them that, and all that. So yeah, if I would collect any of them, it would definitely be the Drukhari. What about you, John? If you had to pick one of this lot,
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Probably sticking with Chaos. If you can get away with not being a neat painter with Drukhari, but from what I've seen, they're quite. Even though they're very like Slaanesh, they're still quite neat looking models when you paint them up. So I don't think my lack of skill is going to help me out. But
I think it depends which models you go for, because like they've got such a wide spread. Like you've got the racks, which are like all bunched up with loads of little like grimy details and ribs and all sorts of stuff, and like the Talos paint engines, which just look like incredible as models, but quite daunting from a detail point of view. They are very, very cool models from what I've seen. It's nice, I suppose, from an Eldari or Drukhari point of view that GW are actually making or updating them, because a lot of the Eldar models, you know, they haven't been updated for years. Some of them, like, they're still running around with, like, you know, 10-year-old, 15-year-old sculpts.
Yeah.
Whereas at least this gives them the opportunity to be maybe, you know, slightly newer and updated.
I think they've done the new Lilith Hesperax model recently as well.
Yeah, that was in the it was Eldar, Dark Eldar. Can't remember the name of the box, but yeah. So you got new Banshees, you got a new Jinsar, sort of Phoenix Lord that we briefly mentioned. Yeah, Lilith, and I think there was new plastic incubi as well, which are sort of like the Dark Eldar equivalent of your aspect warriors, the sort of the best of the best when it comes to combat and armor and equipment. Lovely models. The new ones they brought out, all of the new stuff that for any part of the Eldar race has all been really nice. We just like to see them finish up some of the older ones. Like Shane said, there's some stuff that's been kicking around for a long time.
So who is this Lilith character anyway? I mean, just in a little bit more detail, because I recently got her in the combat cards and she's pretty good.
She is basically the champion of the fighting pits in Comrath. She is like practically untouchable in combat. She will fuck you up in a blink of an eye. It's the simplest way of putting it. She does sort of go in real space raids as well, so you can use her on tabletop. But yeah, she's kind of like the top named character in the witch cult side of the army.
Cool.
I believe she was the one that I believe killed, or at least in the terms of this, before she was reborn, killed Ivrain, who then obviously came back as a disciple of Yoned. So she's quite linked to the lore as well.
So is that a new? That you said it was a new model, didn't you, Dave? I think it was you said that just come out recently. Was it that Lilith?
I don't know how long ago, but I know that there is a relatively new one.
All right.
So you say like the Drukhari come out, the new codex. They seem pretty powerful. When was the last Eldari codex? Has that already been this edition, or is that still?
No, they haven't had a new Eldari codex.
Traditionally, then, would Eldari normally come out on top? Glass hammer and all, or?
I think they're very different. Like, I suppose it depends how you play them as well, because there's like with the Drukhari, like you've got the witch cults, you've got the cabals, and you've got something else. There's like 3 different components to their army, and you can play any combination of all 3. So you could have some of the witch cults, some of the cabal in there. Like as I said, the battle report I watched the other day was very cabal heavy, and it's a bit like the tactics you have for Space Marines as well. Like it's like cabal of the I think it's like the Black Rose or something like that, which just meant they get to re-roll 1s, for example, to hit, and it just made them incredibly effective. So there's multiple different ways of playing it. I think it's just a different army to the Eldari.
Okay.
So I think it all comes down to how you want to build and what you want to play. Like you could play Drukhari really fast and have like jet bikes, like the Razor Wings, as well as their other transports. But then you could do the same thing with Eldari or normal Eldar if you were playing them, because again they have lots of jet bike units. So I think they play relatively similar. It's all in the different tactics and unique powers that the armies have. But that's, as I said, it's coming from someone still looking from the outside, because it's not like I've ever played either army.
Sure.
Then have you got Eldar? Is it all
Ben's got everything.
Models
It's not painted, but he's got them.
Actually, the Eldar army I do have is more or less fully painted because I bought it off Mint. So it's
Oh,
painted.
I see.
It's not grip painted, but it is painted. Yeah, I've dabbled with both of the armies over the years, so I'm not as up to date with how they both function on the tabletop. Previously, the Eldari were like a top tier army. They were sort of winning grand tournaments and stuff like that all over the world. Whereas I think more recently they've had a bit of a slump with the most recent codex. They're nowhere to the same kind of power as they were. Dark Eldar were never the most competitive army out there. It was an army to play that looked quite nice. It was not necessarily always going to work for you. And I think the way forward now, with sort of the bits I've read about it, is having a little bit of all three aspects of the Dark Eldar sort of forces, so you get sort of the maximum benefit out of it. But personally, I would go all down kind of like one way. I would much rather do like a witch cult army because I just like the look of it. Witches, jetpacks, guys on hoverboards, loads of beasts everywhere with beast masters behind them poking ferocious creatures at the enemy. Just seems a bit more fun to me than trying to go, oh, I've got balance and I have to take some of this and some of that. Nah, screw that. Like the look of that. I'll go for that. The only downside with the Dark Eldar is no psychers.
Yes. Good
Whereas
shout.
the Eldar armies, you've got some really, really good psychers, some really useful powers. But yeah, Dark Eldar, no psychers.
So is there a reason
Why
for
is
that?
Yeah.
Because
What? Tell us more.
yeah, the reason's sort of based in the sort of the fluff background that because they are based in the webway, they can't risk a psyker going out of control. So all psychic use has been forbidden in Commorragh. And same as any skill, if you don't use it over thousands and thousands of years, it degrades and degrades. So they've basically lost the ability to use sort of psychic powers, along with the fact that it's banned there as well. So they just sort of don't really develop psychers anymore.
Cool.
Why is it banned? Sorry, just because it's going to cause issues in the webway, or
If a psyker went out of control, basically anybody using psychic powers has the potential to be a gateway for demons to enter through them, and they can't have demons getting into Commorragh because they would just run riot. I think that's the reasoning behind it. Plus, Vect is power hungry, and anybody with that kind of power would potentially be a threat to him. So that's probably another reason why he's outlawed it.
So what have they? I mean, in the lore, mentioned that Vect character. What is the driving force of the Dark Eldar? Do they want to take back control of all of the other Eldari, or what have they got in mind? Nothing. They just like being evil. I mean, what's their purpose? Have they got anything at all?
Pretty much that. They're just out for their own their own self-interest. Like Vect's been ruling the city for, like, say, about 8,000 to 10,000 years, just because he can, and he wants to be the big dick, basically, and everybody else is just out there for themselves.
When the fall happened, obviously you had the Exodites, which were like, no, we've got to go back to a more feudal and basic way of living. You had the craft world that were like, we've got to preserve the Eldar race, so we're gonna look after all the souls on these craft worlds. And then you had the Drukhari, or the Dark Eldar, and the likes of Vect, who were like, no, forget that. We're going to keep, doing all this kinky stuff, and they've not stopped.
You just made Dave's eyes go cross there.
Show us your hands, Dave. Where are they?
Right there.
It's going back a bit because we touched on it earlier. But so you said why did the Eldar create the orcs? The
Eldar didn't create. Sorry, the Eldar didn't create the orcs. The old ones did.
Right. Okay. For what? To just for shits and giggles.
Well, Shane, didn't you say that there was two sort of possibilities? One, that they were just seeded into a world, and the second was that they were made as a force against possibly their enemies. Or?
Yeah. So that was Glenn mentioned that one of the narrative sides of it is that seeding of different worlds, including Terra. So, as I said, the old ones could have started life anywhere, and then the other one is that they were built as or potentially engineered as or tools of weapons for different aspects. So the Eldari are much more refined weapon of war, psychically enabled and able to be a real, like a scalpel, a precision tool of war, versus the was it Grox, the orcs with a G, who, if they were engineered, if you take that side of it, were there just to be more of almost like a bio weapon, because they're like a fungus that you can just put down and off they go. And the old Grox were so like in the modern narrative, like Ghazghkull, for example, an orc gets bigger the more he fights and the more he kills. And apparently the Grox were even bigger than today's orc. So they were like these massive, just weapons of carnage. But again, over time, similar to what Glenn just said regarding the Drukhari use of psychers. If you don't use them, they kind of lose it. And so the modern day orc is, not as big, not as powerful, but still maintains that kind of, I suppose, biological fungus type, just spreading.
So that was actually one of the things I read, Shane. You just touched on it, that the Eldari laugh at us, or the humanity, so that if we didn't actually encounter the orcs the way we do and go out of our way to fight them, then they would lose a lot of their power. Is that true? Or
I think it's it's that combination of the orcs in that they seek out combat. If they don't find it, they don't exist, right? They're like, it's the same way that if enough of them believe something, it manifests itself. It's the same reason like Commissar Yarrick is able to beat up all these orcs, because all the orcs believe he's this nutcase that can take him down, and they're all a bit disappointed when they actually see him, because he's just an old dude. And it's like this whole thing with orcs is that they manifest themselves, because if enough of them believe it, then that's what happens. So it's quite, the orcs are a lot of fun, right? Like it's just everyone wants to be an orc. But whether or not they were built by the old ones for that particular purpose is we'll never know.
Cool. Well, looks like we've gone through most of what we know, which isn't too much. I mean, I'm pretty glad that you two are here, to be honest.
It would have been a very short conversation with us, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just read out all of their names and then go, well, see you next month.
He looks cool. He looks cool. He looks cool. He looks cool.
I suppose. Well, I mean, I was going to say, what is the next? Does anyone know what the next codex to drop is? Where our Xenos exploring is going to go?
No.
Admech, I think.
Oh, Admech. Oh,
I think so.
That could be a good one.
Because I've seen a few new weapon profiles and stuff like that appeared on the community page. So I'm pretty sure once that stuff starts happening, Codex is very, very close.
That's a fair point. I got got the latest edition of White Dwarf, and they've got a big AdMech feature. So I started reading that again, which has been about 15 years since the last edition I read. So
Shane, what
White
number
Dwarf.
are they on at the moment?
470 something.
Because I've just found number 200 from when I was a kid. My parents brought it around the other day. So yeah, 400 something. Blimey.
Yeah. But I wanted to get the last edition because they had a load of rules in it for 40k for Maelstrom of War. And it's because I've seen a few battle reports and I was like, I'd quite like to have that. So I've got the rules, but obviously I just missed it. So I've got the latest one, but all it's got in there from a 40k point of view is more about AdMech. So it definitely seems like they're gearing up for some changes that side of things.
Speaking of magazines, any of you guys had any update for our Imperial magazine, or is that still quiet until summer?
Nope.
Nothing. I got another 2 emails through since the first one saying exactly the same thing as the first one for some reason, but that's it.
Oh yeah, I've got that. I was thinking, oh, I've got news. Nope, it's the same news. Never mind.
Because I've seen some people have already been getting theirs through, and some like corner shops in certain places have been doing them as well. So yeah, I've seen a couple people. I don't know whereabouts. Obviously in like the test areas. So
yeah,
if anyone out there watching has got it, be interested.
Fuck
just
you.
let us know. Yeah, fuck you. Interesting, just to let us know what it's all about.
Let us know which corner shops where, so that John can go in with his police ID and confiscate the lot.
Contraband. Oh, cool. Right. So, has anybody got any more Eldari or Drukhari tidbits that they want to drop?
No. I'm definitely going to look into it a bit more though, because it's actually quite interesting listening to Shane and Glenn talking about some of that stuff.
Yeah, but I didn't realise quite how sort of organised they were. I don't know why. Probably for like ignorance. I thought the Drukhari were another sort of like just sort of
the Drukhari.
They're not. I'm so Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Yeah. I thought the Dark Elder were more of an unorganised sort of Xenos faction, sort of mindless, running around just fucking and stabbing. But they're pretty well organised. So.
Well, they are.
Yeah, but they've got some sort of random.
I think that's probably why they're still like stuck doing just raiding parties rather than if they all got together, then there'd be quite an actual serious threat to parts of the Imperium at least, but they can't stop fucking each other and doing.
I think they're just fucking angry that no one can pronounce their name. That's the whole reason they are the way they are.
So internet nerds can't fucking say my name properly. Gonna rip his skin off.
The Drukhari. But yeah, I mean, like me, I didn't even realise that there was 5 factions at all within them. I just thought there was, Eldar and Dark Eldar, and that was it. Had no idea that I thought the Harlequins maybe, because I've heard of them, I thought they may be one, part of one or the other. I didn't realise those their own sort of thing. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Awesome.
I don't know why I keep going up and down on my iPad. I've actually got nothing on there whatsoever. The screen's not even on.
Cool. All right. So we'll wrap it up for this episode. Let us know. Did we teach you anything? Well, did Shane or Glenn teach you anything, or did we just fucking talk shit for 2 hours? Let us know how badly we did in the comments below. Make sure you check us out on our Instagrams, Twitter. Come join us on Facebook. Join us on Combat Cards. Join our clan. And Glenn and Shane can lord it over you as well, how much they've played it. I think we have got a Twitch. We haven't done anything on it yet, but follow us on there for when we get around to playing some cool Warhammer games. And unless anyone's got anything else, that is Exterminatus.
As always, we would like to thank you for listening to our Iron and Ceramite podcast. If you liked us, then you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any other good podcast services. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
was going to say it's not going to be like the Chaos Gods, is it? Where we just kind of fumble around for a bit and like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Dave, you watch Major Kill, so you know the
Yep.
the
I'm refreshed.
storyline about like Gilliman and
Big T Eldar friends.
yeah, Yvrain, the you know, and how whether or not human elder interactions can actually take place. Anyway, maybe that's for a bit later on.
Yeah,
I'm sure
lie,
it's it.
and complete disclosure, I actually left my notes at work because I was writing them out. So I've scribbled stuff down a little bit. It is going to be a little bit off the top of my head because obviously I haven't got all my notes with me. But
Could be a very short episode then.
No, we'll do the best we can.
It'll be fine. Be fine.
If need be, we can just pause the recording, look a bunch of shit up on the 40k wiki, and talk about it, and you know, then just edit it back in. It's fine.
I'm waiting for us to get onto the Drukhari, and Dave's just going to take off like a rocket. And yeah, while you're talking, Dave, your hands need to be where we can see them, so we know you're not wanking.
I'll make no promises.
It just start going cross-eyed. and they flay your penis. Well, that's a lovely hedge you've got on that beard,
See the
Dave.
top of that,
On the list of ones I want to get, but I do want to complete the Crusade first. There's a few other sort of factions that I want to get, but yeah, the Drakari are definitely up there.
Brilliant. Just fucking straight to the point, Dave. No conversation.
What would you want me to say?
I don't know. I don't know.
At least he didn't shout at us.
I just like Tom's reaction.
Tom refusing entirely now to engage with
I'm sure I made him say it. Like he said it before.